I began January using my normal method, which is to draw a frame and then a string within the frame, and then I choose the tangles to use randomly. Although I normally use quite a few tangles on a single tile, occasionally I'll try something different. For the tile on the left, I filled the tile with a single large tangle, and then I used other tangles around it. Sometimes I don't use a border, as on the tile on the right. These two tiles were drawn following the instructions for the beginning exercises in the Zentangle primer. Every so often, I like to go back to the beginning. It's fun to compare these beginning tiles over the years to see how much my tangling has changed over time. I had been following Jo Flaherty on Facebook and watching her beautifully colored Zentangles. I decided I wanted to try that technique myself, and here is my first colored Zentangle of the year. I think it was a good start considering it was a total experiment. And then, although I've placed it at the end of January, the tile on the right is actually the first tile of the year. I continued to experiment with colored tiles. I had the most success using markers, scribbled onto a piece of plastic, and picked up with a water brush. So basically, using the markers as watercolor pigments. When I was going through my cupboards, I found this brown paper. I thought as a break it might be fun to tangle on it. I used brown, sepia, and black Pigma microns to draw the tangles, and matching colored pencils to do the shadowing. These are all monotangles with some additions. I had seen a lot of Zen gems on Facebook, so I wanted to give them a try. I was also continuing to play around with color options. I continued to create what I call standard Zentangles throughout the month. I generally stuck with my normal method. Although I did get a little adventurous occasionally and sometimes did something different. I was experimenting with using markers in various ways in conjunction with tangling. Since I was exploring various brands, I decided to incorporate my findings into blog posts, and thus March Marker Madness was born. I learned a lot about markers, and I hope that my readers found the information useful too. However, there were only 6 Zentangles completed this month. Most were done using my regular technique, but the middle one here is a result of Annie's Echo Lines tutorial. I did also try another tan-colored paper from my inventory to see if I liked tangling on it. I wasn't thrilled with the tile until I decided to add the red. It made all the difference. A shift is beginning in the level of detail in my tangling. I'm opting for denser, smaller designs than I did previously. I'm also often choosing to use fewer tangles on a tile. My standard tiles continue, but I'm thinking more about contrast and the overall tone of the tangles used. I began posting Monotangle Mondays in April. They included this umbel done on a black tile. It was extremely unusual for me to tangle on black. I'm not particularly good at it, and I don't like the results. I decided to try doing an entire tangle in red ink. I decided to add some orange to the beads in the corners, but I stopped because I really didn't care for it. Easter was in April, so I had to do a themed tile. In this case, and on the brown tile, I experimented with various gel pens along with markers. Shading on the brown tile was tricky because the tortillon kept picking up the sparkle unless I was really careful. The tile in the center is the first official Distress Ink Zentangle from Annie's tutorial. I found it really difficult, and it took several days to do because of waiting for the various layers to dry. This was a month of monotangles and colored tiles. I liked using monotangles to experiment with color because it removed any stress involved with matching up the coloring to multiple tangles. I ended up going back to my standard method of drawing the tangle and then adding all of the color, including the background. More Zentangles were also created as per my normal method. I saw several examples of Delft blue techniques on Facebook, and I decided to give it a try. In this case, I used many different blue pens because I didn't know what would work and what wouldn't. I also did 2 brown ink Zentangles. The one on the left was using various brown Pigma Micron pens, and the one on the right was using a sepia Micron pen. Sometimes I used a looser interpretation of my string, or sometimes I ignored them completely. I also added some new tangles to my repertoire and perfected some that I didn't like before. This month, I only did 3 tiles using my standard practice. Instead, I used a lot of color in various ways. This first set is all monotangles, and they all involve using Zen gems in some way. Now the Zen gems are a direct result of Annie's turquoise brooch video tutorial. Also this month, I did her twisted rope tutorial, which I loved. I also did some experimentation with Muka 3D, which I had a hard time getting a handle on. I realized this month that I should probably do more with Zen gems. I've collected actual stones since I was a small child. In all that time, it just never occurred to me to draw them. These were so much fun, and I plan to do more of them in the future. I did more experimentation on various colors of paper. I found that I prefer using multiple colored inks to create more contrast on a single tile. I think the final results are more attractive. My standard practice continues, but I'm starting to increase the complexity of the line work. I'm also trying to increase the amount of shading that I do. I've always kept it fairly light, but I can see the advantage of more contrast. I participated in more challenges on Facebook, although I often didn't get to it before the actual challenge ended. It was okay though, because I was choosing challenges that pushed me out of my comfort level. The classes from Annie included Showgirl. My Showgirl example took forever because I added a crazy amount of line work. I think I was trying to compensate for having such a hard time with the subject tangle. I also decided to create the Astral Astronaut's ship coming through the wormhole. This was because many of the radio blossoms we were working with around this time looked like spaceships or satellites to me. I did the twisted ropes monotangle just to have some relief from all of the line work I was doing. Punzel isn't a tangle that I do often. I don't know how to keep it from growing bigger and bigger as I draw it. The middle tile was done as practice for the principle of drawing behind, and the tile on the right was done to practice a different way of drawing the tangle tuffet, which looks like flower blossoms here. The tile on the left was a result of using Tripoli as a reticulum and filling each element with a fragment. This is the first time that I've drawn Tripoli in a manner that I liked, and as a direct result of watching a Zentangle kitchen table video. The middle tile is another blue experimentation, this time with better results than I had back in May. This month I watched Annie's perk video, and the tile on the right is from that video. These 2 tiles are direct opposites in many ways. The first one is full of tiny tangles and lots of detail. The one on the right was simply to do something quick and relaxed. It's a monotangle of various ways of drawing Muka. The theme for August is challenge. I really pushed myself way outside of my comfort zone this month and completed a whopping 21 Zentangles. I continued my standard tangling, but experimented a bit with combining different ways of creating contrast. For example, coloring in the background behind bold tangles and then tangling over the dark area with gel pen. Some experiments turned out surprisingly well, while others were a bit disappointing. I worked to increase the amount of shading and tried different styles. I added to my tangle repertoire, did more experimentation with fragments, and continued my experiments on colored paper. Annie's videos included radial zendalas, tangled words, and pinochle. I enjoyed all of the classes, and I managed to create tiles from all of them, although the Zendala-like tile took a very long time to complete. I've always had problems with pinochle, and I was stunned at how easy it turned out to be following Annie's fantastic instructions. Annie's lesson on radial blossoms was an eye-opener for me, and I used it to create more fun ships for my astral astronaut. I also did this dragon tile. I really wanted Annie to do a dragon lesson. I kept bugging her about it, which I'm sure was annoying. I finally just sat down and figured it out for myself from looking at the drawings she had posted on her blog. The monotangles from this month really show how much my tangling has changed since January. Here you see examples of tangulation and reticula, tiny detail, strong line work, and much heavier shading than in the past. I happen to really like pink and gray combined. I like it enough that my hair is often some variation of those colors. Here I tried using pink paper and gray paper, and then I just used white and colored it in with markers. I continued my regular practice, but I think the heavy line work the previous month may have been a bit fatiguing because I did some simpler tiles. More standard tiles and another pink and gray tile, this time on pearl gray paper. September 11th, 2001 is a day that I will never forget. I will never forget my husband calling me and telling me that a plane crashed into the tower in New York. So many things in our world changed forever on that day. All of these tiles are for challenges in Annie's Facebook group. The two on the ends were for her new tangle, Quasila. Unfortunately, I don't remember which tangle was a focus for the middle tile. I just know that things went in a very silly direction that day. I put these tiles both in the same slide because they have so much in common. I was experimenting with different ways of drawing holobow. In the first one, on the left, I used it to create windows, which I filled with other tangles. In the other Zentangle, I used the arms of holobow in a similar way, but the bars actually followed the string. It was really interesting as I was putting this video together to realize that I used Arucas twice this month, and both times with turquoise. It's interesting to see the difference in the two tiles, simplicity versus complexity. These are the monotangles for the month. The low-car tile is a result of following Annie's Distress Ink video carefully step by step. I went way outside of my comfort zone on this one when I was coloring the tangle, but the problem was, with it being several branches on top of each other, how to give each one its own personality. To accomplish that, I used gel pen in addition to Distress Ink when I colored the various parts. I deliberately chose African artists because it's based on an OG grid, which is a technique I struggle with. I was very careful and took my time, and I'm happy with the final results. The tan tile is a result of watching a video from Zentangle. It's actually a duotangle of Munchin and Well. I thought it just looked fun and relaxing in the video, so I wanted to try it. The video was the introduction of fractalization the Zentangle way. These two pictures represent an important ongoing project that began this month. It began with my wanting to have calm, meditative music to listen to while I tangled. This led to my wondering what a Zentangle would sound like if it was turned into music. Would it sound calm? How would a colored Zentangle sound in comparison to a black and white drawing on paper? How would shading affect the sound? My husband and I discussed this concept extensively, and since both of us are programmers, we wondered if it was possible to write software to translate a Zentangle drawing into music. Now I'm going to be quiet for a few seconds so you can actually hear the music in the background of this video. What you are hearing is a Zentangle drawing actually being played by a computer. You can listen to it and other examples by going to tandika.com and looking for Music Monday in the tag cloud. Click on that and you can visit the post to read about how this is being done. This was a crazy month for me. On the 10th, Zentangle opened up the registration for the CZT classes in 2018. So now it was time to make the final decision about going or not. After a lot of discussion and hoopla here, I was registered for CZT 30 along with my daughter Amanda. We're going to be roommates. I created a few standard tiles this month, but I had trouble concentrating on tangling because I was so excited about CZT and my birthday, which was this month. A couple more regular Zentangles. I'm beginning to experiment with cross-hatching a bit to see if I like it better than solid with white highlights. Here are this month's monotangles. I chose Zenzeppel because it's one of my favorites and it's simple. That allowed me to experiment with different colors of blue ink without a lot of stress about the outcome. This Bunzo monotangle is another of my favorites. I think this tile has the best highlighting I've ever done. Another pink and gray tile, this time exploring the concept of using Polygon as a reticula and filling it with batten. The blue and white tile was a quick one done just to try out Lynn Mead's concept she calls Zen twining. It was an interesting experiment that I hope to explore more in the future. Amanda got her copy of the Zentangle primer and we are working slowly through all of the exercises in the book. Most of you who are familiar with the Zentangle method will recognize the tile on the left. Something similar is normally the first tile that everyone does. The tile on the right represents the exact same tangles, but drawn in different ways. These two tiles are also from exercises in the primer. A few standard tiles this month. I tried to incorporate challenges or focus tangles in these along with using my standard methods. Busy days mean that I elect to do simpler tangles, and stress means I will choose simple repeating lines to build larger designs. I wanted to see what would happen with Sand Swirl if I used different colors of ink for each swirling section. Also this month, Zentangle introduced the first new tangle in a while, Dude. I don't know why I decided to do it on a black tile, probably because it was done on a black tile in the video, but I wanted something different, so I used the pink metallic gel pen and then I added some pink accents to the other iterations. I did this version of Hollybow for an exercise in the primer. More Zentangles from the exercises in the primer. Another tile from a Zentangle primer exercise, and a standard method tile. Annie introduced her Shading Tiny Details lesson in October, and I finally got around to trying it this month. A major problem for me for some reason was drawing the basic aquafleur. I finally figured it out, as you can see here. Another Annie lesson from the end of October was Fractalized Tangles. I actually had a dream in which I created this betweed tile, so I woke up and did it in real life. This was my favorite lesson from Annie so far, Tan Treasure Tiles. There was so much to learn, and the end results are just spectacular. I will definitely be using everything I learned here over and over again. This month, I was very busy away from the studio. In addition, it is a culmination of everything I learned during the year and a foreshadowing of 2018. I did a couple of Zentangles just for relaxation following my standard method, or to use the focus tangles from Facebook groups. The center tile was from a primer exercise. The tile on the right has another new official tangle, Toodles, used as a fill in the upper left corner. I caught an octopus bug, so I did the underwater tile on the left. I also decided that I would do the Project Pack 1 and the Project Pack 2 exercises. The center tile is from the first day of Project Pack 2. For Hanukkah, I drew the tile on the right over a period of 8 days, posting each day at local sundown on my blog. I added to the sky each day also. The first tile, with all the borbs, was for a focus on Facebook. The others are my monotangles for this month. Both are also the result of challenges in Annie's Shading and Exploring Zentangle group on Facebook. The Roots monotangle was a result of a lot of trial and error and repair. It has the heaviest shading of anything I've done this year, but I really like the end results. The Zendala tile on the left is a third new official tangle introduced this year, Rumpus. It's also from Project Pack 2, as is the Diva Dance in the middle. The small bijou is the first exercise from Project Pack 1. This is my first 3D Zentangle project. It's from Project Pack 2, and it was so much fun to do. 2 tiles were created and then assembled to create the structure in the middle. I really would like to do more of this kind of 3D work in 2018. The reason I chose to do the project packs is that, well, you may have noticed, I rarely work on black tiles. I haven't done much with them because I struggle with them. So a big focus for me at the beginning of 2018 is black tiles. I'm really looking forward to the new year and sharing with everyone the new things that I discover as I continue on my Zentangle path. Thank you for watching. Bye.